You've tuned in to I Am Not a Number Live, the review show with Cardinal Sin and friends, where we review a different episode of The Prisoner starring Patrick McGoohan. Each week, we discuss a different episode and its implications then and now. Follow along and make sure to catch the episode in our viewing order so you can be ready to ask questions and participate in the chat. New episodes premiere each week on Wednesdays from 3 to 5 Central. The show's surreal and political implications on the reduction of the individual to a number have an even more insidious impact today, as all of our information, phone calls, texts, likes, photos, and other data are harvested to be sold and turn us into product rather than consumers. Get ready for a deep dive into one of the most important shows to have an impact on pop culture and society ever. And remember, I am not a number. Greetings, followers. It is I, Cardinal Sin. And I would like to welcome you to I Am Not a Number, number 16, The Girl Who Was Deaf. But I can't review the show alone, so welcome Rick the Unmutual and Tracy Torme.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Gil. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Rick. Hello, overseas.
Hello, Rick, overseas.
Yeah, right back at you, Tracy. Great to hear your voice again.
I can't hear Rick, I think.
He said it's great to hear you, your voice again, and I'm glad that we got the whole band back together for this one.
It's quite a club.
It's going to be an interesting show, and I'd like to start off by acknowledging some of the folks in the chat. Tessa D777 is here. Good afternoon. Michael Beacom is here. Hail. And for right now, that's it, except, of course, for Darius Munchausen. Hail. Thanks for being here. And we are going to be discussing The Girl Who Was Deaf, the episode of The Prisoner. And I guess we should just jump right into it. Rick, do you have any thoughts that you'd like to begin with?
Yeah, I always like to give everybody a bit of background on why this episode exists. This episode came about because it was one of the last 4 to be made. It was actually the penultimate one to be produced. Only Fallout, the last episode, was produced after this one. And that's why you can see some of the same sets. So the lighthouse set in The Girl Who Was Deaf is the same set as the interior of the rocket in the last episode. And the cavern...
Gil, I can't hear Rick.
That's because you don't have StreamYard on, Tracy.
Is there something you want me to turn on?
I'll let you know.
Okay.
This episode was created because they needed 4 more episodes for the second production block. They were short of ideas, but for this episode, David Tomlin turned to a storyline he'd actually written for the aborted 4th season of Danger Man, about a mad professor who wants to destroy London with a lighthouse disguised as a rocket. Originally, the Napoleon character we see in the episode was originally going to be Adolf Hitler. But they thought that was probably, it was only just over 20 years since the end of the war. They thought making a comedy kind of figure out of Hitler probably wouldn't go down too well with the folks at home, so it was changed.
Probably not. Don't mention the war. Don't mention the war.
So, they yeah, I mentioned it once, but I think I got away with it. So what they did was they took the storyline and fleshed it out.
That was a Faulty Towers joke.
It was, and linked it into The Prisoner by just having this little segue at the end that he was reading a story to the children, and that he might have given something away while reading the story. It's basically the cast and crew having a bit of fun. There's lots of references to Danger Man. There's Bond stuff in there. It's a real pastiche of the kind of spy thrillers of the 60s. It's got nothing to do with the rest of the series, of course. It's a standalone, it's a filler, but it's great fun. I love The Girl Who Was Death. I think the music's great. I think it's great fun. And I defy anyone who attacks it.
Yeah. And there's definitely several ways to approach this episode. And I personally think I approached it way too seriously, because that's what I'm used to with The Prisoner. I'm not used to this kind of a lightweight filler episode. But I've heard two schools of thought about this. One, that this was the 6th episode produced, and the other, that the script was revamped for The Prisoner late in the game, when the production team was running out of ideas for additional Prisoner episodes.
Yeah, the latter is true. It was the 16th out of 17 to be produced, late 1967. The series was already on the air when this episode was being finished.
Really?
So this was this didn't finish editing until very early 1968, when they were editing this and Fallout back to back. So it was very, very late in the day that this episode was written and produced. And so your latter comments there are the ones that are correct.
Yeah, it appears that the people involved had great fun reviving some old secret agent ideas. Christopher Benjamin, a regular on Secret Agent, plays the same role here, that of Potter. And there's a minor player in this episode, a bowler, who is portrayed by an actor named John Drake. How meta can you get?
Yeah. And the actor used to get tons of fan mail when Secret Agent or Danger Man was on the TV. All the fan mail that was written to the studios, fans writing into John Drake, the character. John Drake, the actor, would get the character's fan mail. And the actor said that this was the production team's own little way of apologizing for having to deal with all that fan mail, was to give him a little role in The Prisoner. Although, one thing about Potter is that Christopher Benjamin, who plays the character, when he was interviewed, said he didn't see them as the same characters. He saw it as a homage and a nod to Danger Man, but he played them as two completely different characters. The Danger Man, Christopher Benjamin, was sort of an upper-class twit in a suit with a twirly moustache, whereas the Prisoner version of Potter's kind of a bit more rough and ready, streetwise field agent. So Christopher Benjamin was under no doubt that they were two completely different characters, rather than the same one.
And I would like to let everyone know, I'm not sick, but I have a really dry mouth. It's very dry here. We've had several weeks of really cold weather, and it seems to be making my mouth dry, so I'll be taking sips of water a little bit more often than I'm used to. Tracy, can we get your initial ideas? You just watched it, right?
Yeah, I saw a similarity between Living in Harmony and this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that they ended up being aired close to each other, but it's sort of like when you're watching Living in Harmony, he's off the island seemingly, and he's some other place which starts off as the western town or whatever, and you sort of have to take a step back and try to kind of catch up with what you're missing, because you're used to in The Prisoner him being trapped on the island and not being able to escape it.
Right.
Other than the episodes where he is faked into thinking he got back to London briefly, this one had the same kind of jarring quality to me, where it starts and you're kind of thinking, wait a minute, he's playing cricket, he's I mean, it's like you're sort of trying to catch up with the episode in that way. And I think that one of the things in looking back at the show, if I had been involved with this show at that time, I would have been very useful because I would have been, 8 years old. But I would have been very reluctant to have him off the island as many times as he is.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think one of the thematic things in the show is that he's trapped on this island, which is actually a pretty idyllic place. But because of the type of guy he is, being a prisoner, quote unquote, anywhere would be unlivable for him, and he's always trying to get off the island. So therefore, when you see a couple of episodes back to back where he's off the island as the show begins, he's somewhere else somehow, I find that a little bit jarring. And I know you mentioned it, Gil, in last week's show, that you were kind of thrown by that. And then I thought of two other things right off the bat, and I'm wondering what Rick would say to this. Terrence Feely has immediately become my favorite prisoner writer because he wrote The Schizoid Man, which is my favorite episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew you'd mentioned before that he wrote one other, so I assume that's this one. And I'm really curious to see what he would do with it, and if it had similarities to The Schizoid Man. And then also, I had some Australian friends who were, fanatical fans of cricket, and they've had many talks with me trying to decipher how cricket is played. Now, I used to be a baseball player, and it is similar, obviously, in some ways, but in other ways, it's such a strange sport, has strange customs to it. And so I thought it's kind of funny that they not only, delve into the game of cricket so deeply, but that McGowan has, that, what do you call those things, mutton chops, sideburns?
Yeah.
As well
And
as
the mustache. Yeah.
he's impersonating Sherlock Holmes or something. So it obviously starts off as being somewhat of a whimsical episode.
Yeah.
But then again, the title of it, The Girl Who Was Death, which obviously gives it a more serious tone. So they obviously threw in some surrealistic touches, like when the pitcher throws to the batter, they do those weird, quick cuts to like the
I think it's the bowler, throws the ball to the batsman.
Right, exactly. So they seem to be just having some fun with this episode, based on the music, based on the look of the players. It's interesting. I was thinking about it too, that you mentioned to me before that they were running short on ideas at one point, and it seems like when they did run short on ideas, they went really far off into surrealism land.
Mm-hmm.
They did that Living in Harmony, right? They did that with this one. The pitch is thrown, and it's actually a bomb, and he catches it and shoots it away, and then it explodes. So I really don't think, other than the title in this one, I really don't think they were going for anything really dark other than the title, and also the kind of almost comical moments where the bomb's about to explode, or they do those weird close-ups of McGowan and the other guy when they get into that weird boxing match. I think they were either really tired as a writing staff, or they just decided, well, what the hell? Let's kind of do something that's a bit cartoonish.
Mm-hmm.
So, those are my initial thoughts.
Please tell Tracy he's absolutely spot on with everything he says. They didn't have any ideas prisoner-wise, so they thought, let's just have some fun.
Gil, I lost you.
And Rick said he agreed with your assessment. And the plot of the story is that a cricket game ends quite wrong when one of the batsmen is blown up. He was meant to uncover a plan where a rocket ship would be launched at and destroy London. An explosive cricket ball put an end to that. Thus, an agent is sent to investigate the ordeal. All the while, a rather mysterious woman keeps leading him on from location to location. And because, as Rick said, this was written for Danger Man, and it was an episode that wasn't produced, they sort of refitted it for The Prisoner, and sort of there you have it.
Rick, the woman in the piece that I guess was death, she appeared in one other episode, right?
No, she didn't appear in any other episodes. Her name's Justine Lord, and this was the only time she appeared.
No, her name is Justine Lord, and this is the only episode in which she appears.
Oh, I thought I recognized her. Okay.
But I tell you someone who you didn't recognize, when number 6, or whoever he is when he's in this Sherlock Holmes outfit, he goes into a record store and hears a coded message, a bit like Mission Impossible, where the guy's saying, "Oh, you must now go in disguise," and whatever. The person reading the message in the record store is Alexis Canna, who was the kid in Living in Harmony. And Alexis Canna is also the photographer on the roller coaster.
Right.
In case you didn't recognize him.
And so, Tracy, what Rick was saying is that the guy that played the kid, what was his first name, Rick?
Alexis Canna.
Alexis Canner, yeah, was the kid in the Western themed one that we watched last week, and he plays a cameraman and one other role. Is that right, Rick?
Yeah, he's the voice in the record store that gives number 6 instructions for the mission.
Yeah, he's the voice in the record store that gives him his mission as well. And number 6's mission is recorded on vinyl, and the booths in the shop to listen to the records at the record stores, back in the day, record stores actually had booths like that with headphones so that you could try before you buy.
Right, I remember that.
And that's very John Drake / Danger Man / Secret Agent. If you've seen Secret Agent, you can tell this is a Secret Agent script.
I wonder if McGowan was enamored with the technical aspect of playing a record, because there's a scene in this that really reminded me of the other one we saw earlier in the year, where he keeps having to play that record again and again and try to find the missing moment. And it seems like it's sort of treated with reverence. It's like weird when you think about it, because there weren't CDs, I guess, in those days.
Mm-hmm.
But there seems to be a loving affection for just playing the record, like lining it up, putting the needle on it, and all of that. And saw that in 2 different sequences. So I wonder if maybe he, in private life, loved playing records.
Well, he was a big fan of jazz, right, Rick?
Yeah. So I think it's lovely that there were various bits in the series where records are played. Yeah, Hammer into Anvil is the episode that Tracy's referring to, and there's
Hammer
quite a
into
bit of violent
Anvil.
action.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I don't think he was looking for the missing moment. I think that he was trying to psych out the shop owner, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah, no,
But it also, another thought that I had was what a bizarre sport cricket is.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing I came to learn is people seem to either hate cricket or they love it. And those that love it think there's nothing better in the world than spending, 16 hours on the cricket field waiting for a match to end. They have a lot of reverence for that. And other people think cricket is like the stupidest sport of all time. But it's just, an interesting sport to use in a show like this. Because I think at the same time, when McGowan is playing cricket, wearing a Sherlock Holmes outfit with those ridiculous mutton chop sideburns,
dressed up as Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, it's just like they're poking fun at the sport in a lot of ways. I think.
Oi, who are you trying to fool, mate?
Yeah. So.
Well, some of my initial thoughts were, when the girl lands the helicopter, why doesn't he steal it instead of running after her? But of course the answer is because it was written as a Danger Man episode.
Yeah, but also by now I would think he'd be pretty distrusting of any helicopters, because so many times he's been fooled.
Well, I mean, he was able to fly it, but they remote controlled it and brought him back.
Right, yes.
And so we're back to the old, it was all a story trope, which I found very unfulfilling. I really dislike episodes of shows that negate the experience of having watched it. If at the end of the episode there are no consequences, no metaphor or morality play, it's just silly for silly's sake, and that doesn't poke my potato.
Mm-hmm. I think it almost makes.
But we knew that we knew that from the beginning, though.
So it's kind of like that old cliche. You see something, and it was all a dream.
Right.
He wakes up, and it was all a dream.
And Rick has a thought here.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Rick.
Well, we knew that from the beginning of the episode, because throughout the episode we see him turning the pages of the book. So we always knew it was a story. We always knew it was a fantasy. It wasn't as if at the end we only just realised. Maybe I don't know if it's that.
Yeah, I didn't put together that he was reading from a storybook just from seeing different pages. I mean, the first one said The Village at the bottom, and when we would come back from different commercial breaks, they would turn a page and show the new page, but I didn't connect that it was a storybook until the end, and so I didn't know what to think. I was really pretty confused at the beginning and throughout the episode, actually, because it starts out and they're not in the village. They're, somewhere presumably in England playing cricket. Rick, isn't it the case that some cricket matches last for days?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, a proper cricket match lasts for 5 days. You have 5 days.
5 days
in which to.
Wow.
The match. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think cricket is something that most Americans don't really understand or appreciate. Another one of my thoughts was whether it's a story or not, number 6 still wins at the end, they're in the village and number 6 isn't. And I really don't know what to make of this episode. Why the Napoleonic costumes if number 2 is a rocket scientist? And why would his Keystone Cops minions flail about uselessly? Rick, hang on a second. You're roboting out. Rick, we're having a hard time hearing you. Can you slow down a bit? You're roboting out a little bit.
I'm speaking quite slowly.
There you go.
Yeah, that's not because I'm speaking quickly. Am I better now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, what we've got to remember, and everyone watching this episode has got to remember, is apart from the last 30 seconds, none of anything you see is the character of number 6. He's reading a story out of a book to some children about a mythical secret agent called Mr. X who's stopping a mad scientist from blowing up London. None of that has anything to do with the people within the village. It's just visually for the audience, we play it so that the girl ends up being in the village at the end, and number 2 ends up being a familiar face from the story as well. But nothing that happens in the story is happening to the people that are in the village. So number 2 isn't a Napoleonic rocket scientist, and the girl that works in the village isn't a woman who runs around with.
It's just part of the story.
It's a fantasy book that number 6 is reading to some children. There's nothing that can be read into any of it.
But we don't know that until the last 30 seconds.
No, that's right. That's right. But once we do know that,
so watching it, obviously, it's very confusing. And
I didn't see. Funnily enough, I didn't find it confusing. Funnily enough.
Yeah, I didn't put together the pages of the book when they came back from commercial. I got the impression that at the end he was definitely not in the village. Although when he says good night to children everywhere, it seems that it's obviously pointed at the new number 2 and his lovely assistant, whose code name is Death. It looked to me for all the world that he was out in old London town where he delivered that line into a camera.
He's in the village. No, he's in the village. He's in the village reading to some children that are in the village. He's wearing his village blazer. It's blatantly obvious that he's in the village.
But until the last 30 seconds...
He's putting the figure up at the camera. That he knows he's being watched by the camera, so he puts the clown thing up there to say, you're a clown. I'm absolutely amazed that anyone would watch that thinking he wasn't in the village.
I didn't, because I didn't put together the storybook thing until the last 30 seconds. And a lot of this may just be too subtle or going over my head, or I don't get it. I don't know. But for all the world, it looked like number 6 had won, escaped, and everyone in the village was just trapped there. And I think there wasn't enough connective tissue between the two plots to make it anything more than extremely subtle and really kind of vague.
You found it subtle when he closed a book at the end, and it says in big letters on the front of the book, the village storybook, and then he turns around and says, and that's how I saved London from the mad scientist, and all the little kids say, let's read another one, please. You found that subtle? I thought it was as subtle as a brick.
Well, okay, so if he's in the village, where are all these children coming from? Why are there suddenly children in the village when we've never seen any before?
That's a good question.
That doesn't make any sense. Again, because it's
why wouldn't
probably
there be children in the village? Why wouldn't there be children in the village? There are married couples.
We've never seen one. It's for people that they have to break to get information out of. Are they trying to break little children to tell them why they retired?
No. I think there's a few things in the series you've obviously missed. There's lots of episodes where characters are saying that they've been there for as long as they can remember. The maid in Arrival has been there for as long as she can remember, so she was there when she was a child. The watchmaker and his daughter. So there's a father and daughter there. We presume that they have been there for a long time. We presume that the father was imprisoned along with his young daughter. There's lots of married couples in the village. Presumably they're going to have sex with each other. So there's lots of clues there as to why wouldn't there be children? We can, there is a child in Living in Harmony actually in one scene, and there is a pram in Arrival. But I appreciate that that's not actually part of the storyline. That's just background luck. But there's lots of clues throughout the episodes as to why people wouldn't be there as children. People reproduce.
Yeah, that's true. They do. I didn't
This is
get
a great
chance.
discussion, by the way, Cardinal Sin. Thank you for allowing us to have this. It's great to be passionate about all these things. I wasn't sure that we'd get much discussion out of this episode, but it's rollicking along, isn't it, mate?
It is, and I think it will continue to be so. This is definitely the most James Bond episode of the series, especially with the Freudian imagery and the sex-death connection. McGowan was critical of the sex and the violence of the Bond series, and indeed, some have suggested that it was these concerns that caused him to turn down the role of Bond in Dr. No. And knowing that, one can imagine that this is not so much a harmless spoof, but rather a pointed skewering of the babes and drinks approach to the spy genre. And we've talked about
it's a homage and a dig at the same time. Yeah,
it seems to me like he's definitely having fun at James Bond's expense. And we've talked before about how James Bond is so ostentatious with his Q-approved sports cars, gadgets, guns, explosives, tuxedos, and martinis. A real undercover operative would learn to fly under the radar like John Drake did, not to say his name to everyone twice, and how he wins at any and every game in any casino. The best way to get shot on a mission is to make sure everyone knows who you are, be the best dressed man in the room, always with a bird or two hanging on, and it's been said that the reason that James Bond lives the life that he does, only eating the finest foods, only wearing the finest clothes, driving the finest cars, being seen with the most beautiful women, is because he knows that he could die at any minute. Any thoughts on that?
Well, speaking of sports cars, I noticed that McGowan drives a different car in this episode. Now, was that done, Rick? Although, Rick, I can't hear your answer directly, but was that done to reestablish that it's not the island where he would have his sports car? That's why they had to give him a different car?
Well, his car is back at his apartment in London.
What kind of car was it that he drives in this? Do you know, Rick?
Rick, what kind of car did he drive in this episode? Do you know?
Yeah. So this is a Lotus Elan, and
Lotus
Tracy is
Galan?
absolutely right. The reason they give him a different color, the reason they just to give you a bit of background, Tracy is correct that they gave him a different car in this episode so that you wouldn't absolutely think this is number 6 in his daytime job driving around. This is a different character. And the reason they chose an Elan was that originally number 6 was going to have a Lotus Elan. It was only when he went to look at the Elan at Lotus and he saw the Lotus 7 that he chose a Lotus 7 instead. But originally he was going to have a Lotus Elan, and it's the car that Emma Peel had in the Avengers.
Right. The same kind that Emma Peel had in the Avengers.
Oh, okay.
Do we know what kind of car the girl whose code name was Death was driving?
Yeah, that's an E-Type Jaguar.
A Jaguar.
Yeah, it's an E-type Jaguar. Yeah.
All very British.
But yeah, Gil, please do let Tracy know that he was correct, that the reason they gave him an Elan was so that it wasn't obviously number 6.
Yeah,
Tracy is
and
right.
so Tracy, the reason they gave him an Elan was so you would know that he was number 6.
No, that
Oh,
he
is
wasn't.
that right?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think you're
Rick,
very
can
confused by
you
this.
repeat?
Yeah, well, I have to say. Yeah. No, the reason that he's driving an Elan is so that you don't think, oh, this is number 6 doing his day job. You think it's a different character. That's the idea, that you think it isn't number 6. And you just think it's a fictional type character.
Okay, so we're meant to think that he's just a fictional type character.
I see.
And not number 6.
Now, can I ask you guys a question?
Sure.
I know that in my old memories of the show, I believe I was told somewhere on the line that the show had reached a point where everyone was, they were hanging on the edge of the cliff, waiting for the final episodes that would explain who is number 1. Is he ever going to get off the island? Is he ever going to get back home? And then we heard that it was a double episode coming at the end, a 2-parter, basically. So are we now in the place in the show or the show's order that we're next going to the double episode?
Correct.
Yes.
Hi, Gil. This is Don. Sorry, I missed your text earlier. I just woke up and...
Sorry about that. Operating this way with hanging the mic over the telephone over the mic is difficult at best. Let me get Tracy back here.
Can you hear me, Gil?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know how much of my question you guys heard.
I think we heard all of it. I'm getting calls and FaceTime calls. Normally I turn my telephone off during streaming, and I can't now, so I apologize to everybody for the pauses and the noise, etc. Tracy, do you want to repeat what you said?
Yeah, I just wondered if we're now close to the sequence where it's the last 2 episodes, or do we have another one
Yes.
before that?
Next week will be Once Upon a Time, and then after that will be the final episode, Fallout.
Wow. Now, is it Once Upon a Time and Fallout, are they connected in any way, or are they 2 totally separate episodes?
Rick?
They follow on from each other. It is a 2-parter, as Tracy suspects.
Yes, it is a 2-parter, yeah.
Okay. So, Rick, I'd like to ask you a question. Can't necessarily hear the answer, but Gil can tell me.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of anticipation and discussion was going on in England, the English press, when we got to the final 2 episodes? Was the idea that I had that there was this big sense of anticipation that the puzzles from the prisoner were finally going to be answered in the last 2? Because I do remember McGowan telling me something about how much pressure he felt going into the last 2.
Rick, before you answer that, let's keep in mind that we're We're trying to talk about the show that we're watching and the shows we've already seen. So in your answer, please make sure they're spoiler free.
Yes, I will. No, Tracy is absolutely correct. By this time, after 15 weeks, the viewers were absolutely bursting to know the answer. And one can have the argument that they possibly never got the answers, depending on what way you look at it. And Patrick was always adamant that he gave the answers, but that the viewers couldn't see them. And the switchboards of the TV station were bombarded with angry callers after the final episode. Oh, I wanted to know what it was about. I never got the answers, and you're all a load of rubbish and whatever. And people hounding him in the streets. That one. Tracy's correct. There was a massive build-up. The whole country wanted to know who was number one.
Right.
Whose side is the village on? Who is number three escape? There really was anticipation for those final two episodes.
So, Tracy, Rick's answer is that yes, there was a great deal of anticipation, and after the final episode, they got a lot of calls from angry viewers that felt unsatisfied.
Well, yeah. I think I have the same sense that a very similar thing was going on in the U.S. at the time. I remember that there were people that were angry, which segues into another thing I'd like to mention to you guys. I all the time, throughout my life, have bonded with people who love The Prisoner. They love to kick things around and debate things and discuss things they've seen. But what I've found now, it's interesting, since we've been doing this show together, I've mentioned it to various people that I naturally assumed would, of course, know The Prisoner, whether they were a fan or not. What I've discovered is there's a pretty large part of the population that don't know The Prisoner. They just don't know it at all. And then I'll start telling them, the basic plot, and they'll always be really intrigued. And they'll, say, God, that sounds great. But the number of people that, I know to be intelligent, people who follow things in the media and on TV, and I'll mention something about doing the Prisoner show, and I'll just say, you know The Prisoner, of course. No. And a section of the population does not know the show anymore, which, and it's kind of a double-edged sword because it makes it unique when you can turn them on to something so great and so different. But it's also surprising to me. Have you found that, Rick?
Yeah, and I think the number of people who know The Prisoner is diminishing year on year as the population gets older. The show doesn't yet get shown, on prime time anymore, or on mainstream stations anymore. It's 55 years old now. To have watched it originally, you would have had to have been nearly, in your mid 60s at least to have seen it on its original showing. Most of us watched it on repeat showing, but the repeat showings are few and far between, and people aren't going to go and buy a DVD set or a Blu-ray set for a show they've never seen, which is a shame because it means that in 20 years' time there'll be even fewer. We'll all be sat in our bath chairs in the old people's home saying, "Do you remember The Prisoner, Cardinal Sin? Do you remember The Prisoner, Tracy?" And we'll go, "Yeah," and we were the only people in there that have ever heard of it.
Right. So, Tracy, what Rick said was that, yes, you're correct, and that he has some disdain for the fact that as the years go by, that there seem to be fewer and fewer people that know The Prisoner. However, my opinion is that there has been a resurgence of The Prisoner lately, And especially because of this show and shows like this show, we're turning on a new generation to the magic of this show.
Yeah, that's great.
I've,
And
I've,
then the
I've
other silver lining to this is that people, when you do talk to them about The Prisoner, those that know the show always seem to light up when the subject comes up or they reminisce about it. I mean, that's a real important kind of fame, because it, in my opinion, especially in more intellectual audiences of television, this is considered an absolute classic. And I think, one of the reasons that I've thought about is this Prisoner is so 60s in so many ways. To me, it's actually one of the more prototypical 60s show of all time. You can just feel it in everything that's going on, from the bright colors to other things. And I think that it has held up very well. And the only reason that people don't maybe now know it now as much as I expect is simply because the wrong things are being promoted, if that makes any sense. It's like, my feeling is, if anyone gets turned on to The Prisoner, chances are really, really good they're going to either like it or think that it's very unique. And
let's think of it this way. It's still in the public zeitgeist enough that a few years ago they did a really shitty remake, but they did a remake.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way to look at it. I must admit, I'm not a big fan of this episode, although I didn't get a chance to watch it a second time. I usually watch once just to soak it in, and then I watch it again so I can take notes and do my research. And I've felt that way enough times during our review show now that I'm convinced that there must be a lot of stuff that's simply going over my head, and it's too subtle because I'm not getting it. If there were any serious stakes in this episode other than the spikes in the pit, I didn't see them. There was no torture, no psychotropic drugs, no thrusting a damsel in distress who number 6 has to save. It was just not an episode of The Prisoner. And that's 2 or 3 in a row now that failed to suspend my disbelief. And now that I've brought everyone down, let's look at some of the things that I liked about this episode. The car starts rotating as it's driving along for no reason and no explanation. Chekhov's car. The frilliest shirt in the world, which would have made John Pertwee green with envy. Quote, "My little girl here will be taking over Bond Street." That's got to be an in-joke about how Bond this episode is. The whole idea that someone would light and fire a lighthouse as a rocket at London, which is too crazy even for a Bond villain. It's like Davros in the reboot of Doctor Who creating a reality bomb. Doesn't Davros have to live in reality? Or is the point that the rocket scientist is so round the twist that it's total anarchy? Another thing that I liked about this episode was that it had the audacity to blow up the Beachy Head Lighthouse. The message, "You have just been poisoned," at the bottom of the pint, I thought was a cool idea. But let's face it, whether it was number 6 or John Drake, either way, he would have stopped drinking when he saw you and thrown the rest away, And number 6 probably just would have upended the pint onto the floor and read the message.
I was wondering during that scene how are they going to pay it off? Were they actually going to show McGowan throwing up after drinking all that stuff? But I guess that wouldn't have been very pleasant to watch. So I think they just implied that that's what he's doing.
Yeah, they sort of showed it off screen and then,
yeah,
which
to me is ironic, because I think, and Rick, I'd love to hear your answer to this. I think I had certainly heard, and also almost been warned about, that McGowan was someone that could drink anyone under the table. Is that true, or is that hyperbole?
Absolutely. And Rose Tobias Shaw, the casting director on The Prisoner, very famous for saying a quote that you should always book Patrick McGowan for the morning because you won't get any work out of him in the afternoon, because he would have spent lunchtime drinking.
So yes, you're correct. He was a heavy drinker, to the point where the casting director.
Yeah.
Is that right, Rick? Yeah. The casting director said, get all out of Patrick that you can during the morning, because by the afternoon he'll be useless.
Wow, interesting.
And another thing I noticed was that he didn't care about the bartender serving him poison. In fact, he orders brandy, whiskey, vodka, Drambuie, Tia Maria, Cointreau, and Grand Marnier. And if the poison doesn't kill you, that would.
So boring to admit it, that's probably more alcohol than I've ever had in my life in that one sitting.
Yeah, and for Patrick McGowan, he probably would have been able to handle that. But number 6, of course, doesn't do all the heady living that James Bond does. So his whole point in drinking the brandy and the whiskey and the vodka, the Drambuie, Tia Maria, Cointreau, and the Grand Marnier was to make himself sick. So he would throw up the poison.
I think that's a clever thing in the script. I mean, maybe because I'm a non-drinker, I thought it was just kind of unique that when he sees that he's just been poisoned, he immediately orders a dozen drinks, and that's how he deals with it. And then I guess he's in the what's he in, a steam room after that?
Mm-hmm.
But
in his full Sherlock Holmes outfit.
Yeah, it must have been a bit hot. Rick,
you would
also,
think so.
Yeah, Rick. There's something else. Terrence Feely again. I know I asked you a long time ago because I loved Schizoid Man. But what other stuff has Terrence Feely written other than The Prisoner that he's known for?
Do you know, he's not massively famous for having... He was just a kind of jobbing writer on 60s TV series, so he never particularly did much of any note. I'm just going to quickly flick through something I have
and
here
while you're flipping through, I'll go ahead and relate that to Tracy.
Yes, The Avengers. He wrote some episodes of The Avengers. No Hiding Place. He was an associate producer on Callan, which is a famous British spy series. That's kind of about it. He didn't really do a lot after The Prisoner.
So Tracy, he wrote for The Avengers. He wrote for a few 60s episodes, but he didn't go on to bigger and better things, is my understanding. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. One thing I want to follow up on about something you said, which was really interesting, Cardinal Sim, was when you were talking about that this episode and probably the two before that didn't give you anything because you were kind of thinking, was it too subtle? Were there things in there that I missed? I think sometimes with The Prisoner, people try and look too deeply at it and therefore get lost thinking, I need to be trying to find something within the episode. Whereas most episodes of The Prisoner are actually pretty obvious what's going on. And if you try and look for things, a bit like what happened to you, you end up almost getting lost and frustrated in it because you're not finding anything. Sometimes it's best just to wipe the
Just
slate
soak it in.
and not look deep into it and just think, I'm being given what I'm given, and that's it. I don't need to look into it anymore. And I think the danger is with these episodes that we've been watching is that people say, well, it didn't give me any clues, it didn't do this. It doesn't necessarily need to, I don't think.
Right. And I think you're right. I just was expecting something more serious because that's what I've come to know The Prisoner for. And this kind of an episode, and certainly the last one, if not the one before that, were so high concept that it went over my head. I was searching for things that weren't there, and I think if I'd had a chance to watch it again after seeing the last 30 seconds of the episode, I would have cut it a lot more slack. But I was just confused all the way through because I didn't pick up a lot of the cues.
Well, the more that we discuss this, the more I think resolutely that this episode and Living in Harmony are really like sister episodes to me. I mean, what's interesting is they did run back to back in the sequence that we're using.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it's the one you
Yeah,
guys
they were
feel is
filmed
totally the
next to
right
each other as
sequence.
well. Yeah.
But there's a lot of similarities. I mean, there's Living in Harmony has a sort of a goofy quality to it. It's like even the way that the Western characters, they remind me, of course, what's partly goofy about it is when the English sometimes try to do American accents, they're always sort of overdone. They come off like hillbillies or rednecks or Southerners. Or whatever.
Tracy, I've found it to be quite opposite to that. When I found out that a certain actor that was doing an American accent was actually from the UK, it always blows me away because I don't detect it. Very, very much of the time, they will hire British actors for American shows because they're classically trained, they have Shakespearean experience, and of course they've been through the whole dialect coaching process, and they do really good American accents. Case in point being Hugh Laurie, who recorded the, I think I mentioned this before, he recorded his audition audio tape for House in his bathroom, and when he got the job, one of the producers, or the executive producer, said something akin to, I can't believe that we got this guy and nobody knows about him. He's a great actor, but nobody knows who he is. And he had no idea that Hugh Laurie was British.
That's interesting. It seems to me that they pronounce their R's sometimes differently than we do, and so you can hear. Now I had a British stepmother. She was an English actress, and I got to know the English dialect, as opposed to the American dialect, more than the average American would.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm maybe a little more sensitive to it, but a lot of times I'll watch something and I'll see the way they pronounce their R's, and I'll say to my wife, he's British. He's not American.
Another thing that I've found, Tracy, is one of the best ways to find out if a given actor is a Brit or from the UK rather than American is when they raise their voice or they have to shout. Often their real accent will come out. I've noticed that with what's the actor who is in There Will Be Blood?
I'm blanking, but I know what you mean.
I can't look it up on my phone because you're hooked up to my microphone.
Right. Right.
He was also in Lincoln. Daniel Day-Lewis. Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
I've noticed it when he has shouted when he was doing an American accent. And when we say an American accent, we realize that there are lots of different American accents, just as there are lots of different British accents. But aside from when they're angry or supposed to shout or raise their voice, in general, I found that British actors were so good that I couldn't tell that they weren't British. A good case in point is Idris Elba when he was on The Wire. He played a heroin dealing gangster, and
oh God, guys, the dogs are not cooperating. Hold on, I'm gonna go to another room.
On The Wire. Yeah, on The Wire, I couldn't tell that Idris Elba was British. His American accent was so good, especially in the street dealing gangster speak that they used. I was really surprised to find out that he was British soon after The Wire. And he's done American accents since then, and he's just great at it. Rick, do you have any input on this topic?
I'm probably only saying this because I'm British and I'm sticking up for people here, but I think British actors do better American accents than Americans do British accents. I would
definitely
put Idris Elba up against Van Dyke any day. It must be said, but I think I do genuine. I think Cardinal, I've agreed with everything you've said about the various actors you were just talking about. I think I would agree with you on that.
And let me just tell Tracy that Rick agrees with what I said.
And by the way, anyone that's interested in this topic, how about Patrick McGowan doing a Southern accent? Anyone ever heard that?
When did he do a Southern accent?
In a movie called The Moonshine Wars.
I haven't seen that.
Elder. Yeah.
He plays a backwoods Southern moonshiner.
And how did he do?
Well, if I hadn't known him, I wouldn't have been so aware, that's Patrick McGowan doing a Southern accent. But, so, it was passable. I mean, I think the guy's obviously a very gifted actor. And, also, one other aside, we've tended to stray into Star Trek land once in a while. And I noticed that one Star Trek writer from the original series had written 2 of my favorite episodes, and I did not recognize her name at all. So I got a little bit curious. And because I was surrounded all the time by Star Trek historians who knew everything about the show, I went to them and said, who's this person? Nobody knew. And nobody could really trace her And so it sort of
Right.
became like a passion for me. Her name is Jean Arioste Lisette. She's one of those 3-part names.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious why no one seemed to know who that was. And she actually wrote 2. And I found out later, believe it or not, she was a UCLA writing professor who had fallen in love with Star Trek and had worked them over. Hey, let me take a shot at writing one. And they liked the first one so much, they let her do a second one.
Oh, this was on TNG.
No, this is from the original Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's an episode of the original Star Trek called... my favorite episode, and I'm going to destroy the name, but I think it's called Is There in Beauty No Truth?
Is There No Truth in Beauty is the name of the episode.
There you go. See, I got it backwards. And she wrote that one. And she wrote another interesting one where they go back in history, and I'm not going to bore your audience.
Tracy, we lost your audio there. Can you repeat?
It's just interesting to me that she was really an amateur writer, and at least for television. I love both of her episodes. The Is There in Truth No Beauty? Let me get that right. The one with the magician.
I would have to look that up.
Yeah, I won't bore your audience anymore. But it's just interesting how sometimes you connect with a certain writer, and I felt like that Sharon Keeley would be a writer that I would have really identified with, because I love the Schizoid Man so much. But it's interesting that they did sort of run out of concepts later on, and I think that's one of the reasons for the Living in Harmony and The Girl Who Is Deaf episodes. I'm sure it's true. They were knowing that they got to get to 17, and by the time they were at 12, they were probably a bit mentally exhausted. And then, of course, my dogs. And then, of course, there's a certain amount of fatigue that hits the writing staff after a certain amount of time, and they suddenly would, sell their left arm to come up with what they think is an original idea. So I think Living in Harmony and Girl Who Is Deaf do sort of signify a time when they were running on empty. They had not reached the very end, which we're going to see soon, where I'm sure they got totally re-energized. But there was a period of time, and they were probably like, oh, God, can we think of anything original? And I think these two were the result of that.
So, Tracy, what I found out about...
Absolutely correct. Both this episode and the last episode were born out of the crew being asked for ideas because they'd run out of ideas. And that's how
right. I remember you saying that before. Tracy, Rick said that the last 2 episodes were born out of asking the crew for ideas.
Wow.
And I did look up Is There No Truth in Beauty, and it says it's written by John Lisette Aristote and directed by Ralph Sineski. It was first broadcast on October 18th, 1968. In this episode, the Enterprise travels with an alien ambassador whose appearance induces madness, and I believe that was the one that had the actress that played the doctor in the second season.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it's the same lady. Yes.
What's her name? Why can't I remember her name?
Oh, God, I know her name like the back of my hand. I'm blanking right now.
I want to say Julie Newmar, but
no, it's not. No, it's not
something like that. But
she's the one who played Dr. Crusher.
No, she played Dr. Pulaski.
Dr. Pulaski, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Pulaski.
Um,
An interesting lady, too. I sat down with her one day, and I talked a lot about that episode because I really liked it so much. If anyone ever gets to see that, hasn't seen it before, it's a really surrealistic episode. There's just all kinds of wildly imaginative things going on, and that's part of the reason that I like that writer so much.
Diana Muldaur is her
There
name.
you go, Diana Muldaur. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Let's go ahead and take a look at the chats that have rolled in since the last time I took a look. Gonna grab a drink of water here.
While you're getting those up,
Okay.
Cardinal, I do want to echo something that you said earlier. Your show here and all the weeks that you've been doing it are so vitally important in keeping the prisoner name alive. And I do want to publicly thank you for providing this show and bringing the prisoner to new people who haven't seen it before. I'm so glad you mentioned it, and you're too bashful to repeat yourself saying it, so I'm going to say it for you. It is incredibly important that this show and shows like it exist, because we really do need to spread the message. The prisoner is more relevant today than it's ever been. So it really is important that new people watch it. So thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. And thank you for being a part of it. I agree that it's more relevant today than ever before. In the intro that I played, I mentioned that it was sort of the extrapolation and a very good one on the part of Patrick McGowan, because he couldn't have known all of the things that he predicted with this show. That there are CCTVs all over London, all the MK Ultra-esque, psychotropic drugs and all that kind of thing. It was very prescient, I think.
Hey, Rick, how much writing had McGowan done over the years? I mean,
by that time?
He wasn't known as a writer until he got to The Prisoner, but did he do any significant writing?
No, he had never written an episode of anything prior to the episodes he wrote.
Tracy Rick says he had never written an episode of anything until The Prisoner.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah.
Not even Danger Man, huh?
I guess not.
No.
Yeah, Rick says no. So I'm going to go ahead and say hi to some folks in the chat. Again, Tessa D777 is here. Good to see you, Tessa. Michael Beacom. And Canadian Spider-Man is here. Good to see Canadian Spider-Man. Michael Beacom has a question for you, Tracy. The very first time I saw this, I was wondering if it was a flashback to some previous adventure. This was before I knew about Danger Man. And I will add to his question that it has been mentioned that it seemed like it was a resigned John Drake episode.
Talking about the girl who was dead?
Yeah.
That's certainly a theory that people attach to it.
Well, like I said, I'm embarrassed to say I've never seen Danger Man.
We will fix that.
Great.
As a matter of fact, after we are done reviewing The Prisoner, which will be in 2 weeks, that'll be the end of The Prisoner, but it will not be the end of I Am Not a Number. We are going to have a watch party for Colony 3, which was the prototype for The Prisoner. And then, the week after that, we will have a watch party of Ice Station Zebra.
Great.
And these will be live via Cosme. I'll be streaming it from my computer, and I will give out the code for people that would like to join us when we're reviewing Fallout, the last episode of The Prisoner. So we'll make sure everybody has...
Okay, just to let you know...
go ahead. Rick?
Sorry, Cardinal. I just wanted to let you know. I've just been looking in my diary, and unfortunately, I can be here next week. The week after is my wife's birthday. We are at the theatre. Unfortunately, I can't make the episode on the 2nd of February, which I think will be make that.
Your audio is roboting out again. Can you slow down a bit?
Yep, can you hear me clearly now?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was just saying, unfortunately, in 2 weeks' time, on Wednesday, the 2nd of February, I can't make the show because it's my wife's birthday. You're out.
Oh, so you won't be here for Fallout?
No, if it's on that date, then unfortunately not.
Oh, goodness gracious. Huh. Well, we kind of need you for that episode.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, I'll kick around some ideas in my head about maybe how we can get around that.
I think I have a good idea. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Again? Why don't you go to his apartment and shoot some white spray, misty spray into his apartment and abduct him and bring him right back radio to the podcast where he will be forced to give us his analysis before we will ever let him not call the number or leave the island.
Well, there's only one problem with that, Tracy, is I don't live in England. So...
Oh, I should have thought of that.
That would be an issue. Going back to the chat, Darius Munchausen very graciously says, "Sip of water for the working man. Hydrate, cardinal sin." And Tom Bertholt says, "It is almost a live-action cartoon," referring to the girl who was deaf. Michael Beacom has a comment or a question for you, Tracy.
Okay.
Says, "Must not forget that this was the height of the spy spoof era. Casino Royale, David Niven, came out in 1967. Man from U.N.C.L.E. went camp. Get Smart was huge. Matt Helm and Flint in theaters."
You're forgetting I Spy.
I Spy as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Michael Beacom goes on to say, "I thought I recognized Justine Lord too, but apparently she was in The Saint a bit."
Who am I thinking of in the episode where he gets back and this woman is taking over his apartment? I thought that's who it was.
Where number 2 is the landlady?
Georgina Cooks.
Right.
Georgina who?
I thought the blonde woman in that, I thought that's who she was,
Georgina Cookson.
but I guess not.
Rick, can you repeat?
No, that's Georgina Cookson. Yeah, Georgina
Yeah.
Cookson.
We keep getting audio dropout for her last name.
That's inconvenient.
Georgina
Cookson.
what?
Cookson. Cookson.
Cookson. Yeah.
Cookson.
Do they look alike, or am I losing my mind?
Say again?
Do they look alike, or am I losing my mind?
Not
No,
really,
I think they do look alike.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they do.
You don't?
I think
I would have to
between
put them, you know, on the same.
Side by side.
Yeah,
right?
side by side.
Mm-hmm.
But my memory of her is that she didn't look too dissimilar. Michael Beacom also says to you, Tracy, not too much reverence. I hate it when I see people gripping vinyl records, putting fingerprints on them. Arg! And last night I did an unboxing where I got a new Echo and the Bunnymen double album, and I showed it to the camera. And of course, since I've managed 3 record stores, I know how to handle vinyl just by the edges to flip it around and that kind of thing. So Michael Beacom, I definitely hear you. And he's got a comment for me. I hear you, but the more I watch it, the more I get into it. He is being asked to tell kids a bedtime story, and he tells them about a secret agent on a mission. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. And Tiger Stripes is here. Hail, Tiger Stripes.
Sorry.
And he says, I have friends who bag on how ridiculous Quidditch is in Harry Potter, and I always reply, I can't make head or tail of cricket either.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Tessa D777 says, never ask Cardinal Sin to watch Waiting for Godot. And she's, of course, referring to my inability to grok some of these things. Although I have seen Gildenkrantz and Rosenstern Are Dead, which is almost the same thing as Waiting for Godot in that sense. And let's see, who else do we have here? Tom Bertholt mentions, or the children could be working for the warders to manipulate the inmates. I think they're too young to manipulate anything but blocks.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that too. The younger
You're
people
right there,
in this
Cardinal Sin.
episode. I wondered kind of what they're doing there.
And Michael Beacom says, to me, we have no idea how long the village has been going on. The architecture is timeless. This place may predate the 20th century. Maybe they were brought in specifically for number 6. That's possible. Orville Nation is here. Greetings, PJ. He says, hi, Gil and
Beacom on the money
friends.
as always.
What's that?
Hey, PJ.
I just said Michael Beacom
Oh,
always
as
on the
always,
money with
yep.
good theories.
Murdog is here saying, pizza. I think that's because one of my Stream Elements chats that comes out from the bot says, I'm hungry, buy me a pizza.
I bet the island doesn't have a very good pizza parlor.
I don't think they have one at all.
Right.
And Michael Beacom says to me, Cardinal Sin, no apologies. You're bringing us Tracy Torme. Also, we have all been interrupted by a call, I guarantee you. And we're also bringing you Rick from the Unmutual
I'm not Tracy.
.co.uk.
I'm always
Yeah. And Tom Berthold also says, two-parter in plot, but very different in tone. And then Michael Beacom says immediately at Tom Berthold, very different in tone. Your understatement is downright British. And Tessa says, they're making me feel old. I saw the original run of the series.
The good news is I don't even remember the last two episodes very well. I remember one particular thing, which I won't mention because it's a spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really don't remember how the last two unwind.
Well, good.
So it's, yeah.
Watching this beautiful remaster of those two episodes will be quite a treat.
Very much so.
Steve Mitchum is here. Hail. Tom Berthold also says, I'm old enough to have seen it and loved it when it aired in the U.S. Michael Beacom says, I saw it on repeats in the early 70s on public television. Cam is here. Says, hail Cardinal and Rick and Tracy. D-Bud Martin is here, and he says, I loved the music in this episode. And unfortunately, as much as I love D-Bud Martin, I couldn't disagree more. I really did not like the episode music.
Wow. I love the episode. I love the music in the episode. Oh no, you've upset me. I love the
it has a
music
lot
in
to
Go
do
There.
with the
Fantastic
fact
use of the Capitol Library.
Rick, it has a lot to do with the fact that I was a professional drummer for 25 years, the first 8 of which I had not yet discovered earplugs. And I played in like hardcore punk bands, so I still have tinnitus to this day from all the cymbals and the loud speakers and all that kind of stuff. So when I hear brass band music or stuff that's at the high treble end, it's off-putting to me. So it may not be the music itself, but just the instruments they're played on.
At least they didn't play Pop Goes the Weasel.
Yeah, again. Yeah, that's true. Tom Berthold mentions the remake was mostly about Jungian psychology.
Well, it was about something, but I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm with Tracy.
And Michael Beacom adds, put this one in context with In Like Flint, Matt Helm, Casino Royale, Get Smart, and there was a reason Austin Powers starts in 1967. I didn't realize that.
There's another film that is extremely 60s, and it also has a lot of spy stuff in it. And that's a favorite movie of mine. And if no one's ever seen it, I really recommend it. It's called The President's Analyst.
Yes, yeah.
And it's with James Coburn.
Very funny movie.
Yeah, really is. They lampoon all the 60s spy films throughout, and it's really brilliant.
And Michael Beacom says the plot is lifted straight from the Bond book Moonraker.
For what?
For The Girl Who Was Deaf.
Oh. Had that already come out then?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I guess the movie hadn't come out
The
yet.
book had, certainly.
Right. Okay.
Ivan Ivanovich is here. Good to see you, Ivan. And Cam says, I gave my channel a name finally. Looking forward to putting up some unique content in the next couple weeks. And his channel name is Cam's Crash Courses.
Intriguing.
Yeah. Be interested to see his content.
Yeah.
Michael Beacom also goes on to let me know, to note that Robert Fairclough, Rick?
Fairclough.
Fairclough's book says that McGowan was still absent filming Ice Station Zebra, so they used costumes like Sherlock Holmes to disguise his double in location shots. Rick,
wow.
is that true?
Yep, that is true. That is absolutely true. It's so that when he's not in close-up, they could use another actor, so they only had McGowan in for the close-ups. That is absolutely true.
And I didn't even notice, even in the remaster, when you would think you would.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And Ivan Ivanovich says this is an especially unserious episode. The lovely Sherry is here. Hail Cardinal Sin, Rick the Unmutual, Tracy Torme. Always good to have the lovely Sherry in the chat. Ivan Ivanovich says, I'm with Tracy on the accents. And he also says, only in the last 20 years have we seen examples of British actors who can do an American accent. In the 60s through the 80s, that was exceptional. I'm not so sure about that. I might go back another decade or two. Michael Beacom.
If you went back in a time machine and you could meet George Washington, I've always wondered this. Would he speak with a British accent?
You know, I've also always wondered about when Americans lost their British accent.
Right.
And one thing that I've noticed, because I study accents and dialects and so forth, is that there are parts of the South where you can hear hints of a British accent still. In Georgia, and in some of those genteel southern states, there's still vestigial elements of the British accent.
I just wonder what the audience, the listeners, think. Would George Washington sound British or American?
You know, there is a TV show called Turn. Have you seen it?
Oh, yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. In that series, they kind of address that.
Really?
Some people speak with a bit of an Irish accent. Some people speak with a bit of a British accent. And, of course, the British soldiers all speak with a British accent. It's a Revolutionary War series, just to let Rick know, if he hasn't seen it. And Michael Beacom says, I do like this episode for some reason, but I guess it's because I love spy spoof stuff, and I think the prisoner is throwing their hat into the ring, so to speak. It's a brilliant observation, again, on Michael Beacom's part. And he says, I will never forget listening to Jane Seymour on a Larry King episode where she just made it fade away. Her British accent, that is.
Interesting.
And Ivan Ivanovich mentions when they did the German dub of Fawlty Towers, Andrew Sachs did his own voice. Very interesting. And Ivan Ivanovich says, I agree that British actors today do superior British accents, but it was certainly not true when The Prisoner was filmed. And Tessa D777 says, anyone want to mention Angela Lansbury? A great actress doing all sorts of American accents. And Michael Beacom says, I am with you, Rick. I find British actors can make their accents turn to flawless American, whereas it doesn't work the other way around. And I largely agree with that. There have been a few American actors that were able to do what I thought were at least passable British accents, but that's the exception rather than the rule for sure.
I think Nicole Kidman does a good American, given that she's Australian.
Yeah. And I remember seeing an episode of Inside the Actors Studio with James Lipton when Charlize Theron was on. And when it came to the Q&A part of the show, one of the questions from an actor, an actress, but we're not supposed to say actress, we're supposed to say actor now. And she asked, how do you do such a flawless American accent? And being South African, Charlize Theron's response was, you just have to go over the top with everything. Which is the opposite of what I would think it would be, you know?
Yeah.
Because it seems like you would want to kind of have everything be stunted and less over the top. But I guess that's part of why she's a professional actor and I'm not.
I did not know she was from South Africa.
Yeah.
I learned something today.
Yeah. And
Okay.
and it's a very difficult accent to do. I have not mastered South African, but I thought that in Invictus, Matt Damon did a pretty passable job of a South African accent, considering how difficult they are to do.
Didn't you play like a rugby player in that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Gil? My dogs have tortured your audience, and now they're begging me to go out. So I'm going to say goodnight to everyone and look forward to seeing you for the next one. And Gil, if you want to talk, I'll call you a little later tonight.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for being with
Bye,
us,
everybody.
Tracy.
Bye, Rick.
Bye, Tracy.
Bye,
Great
thank
to
you.
hear from you.
Bye. Well, bad news is we lost Tracy, but the good news is I won't have any more annoying noises from my phone. Steve Mitchum says there's a suburb of New Orleans where they sound like New Yorkers. I hadn't heard that. And Michael Beacom says to Steve Mitchum, your ear may just be more attuned to it than mine, like someone I know who has perfect pitch, whereas I just know that's a music note. I inherited perfect pitch from my dad, who was a world-renowned concert violinist and composer. It's a bit wasted on a drummer, but I was able to not only show the guitar player in the various bands that I was in the songs that I had written on the guitar, which were very primitive, and let him, play the song as it really was supposed to be played. But I could also tell when they were out of tune, and it drove me crazy. And they inevitably, after tuning it with one of those electronic foot pedal things, would say, no, I'm in tune. And I would demand and insist, no, you're not in tune. You're just close enough to being in tune to make me crazy. Let's see. About Angela Lansbury, I guess. Tessa says to Michael Beacom, and a great performance, also Gaslight when she was younger. And Michael Beacom says to Tessa, I was just watching her in Murder on the Nile, the Peter Ustinov version. the other night. She was horribly overacting, but that was the character she was playing, a total drama queen. And Michael Beacom says, some guys go a little bit raspy to cover it. Oddly, no one who is knighted can do it. Stewart, Michael Caine, Ian McKellen, Gary Oldman's is good, as is Christian Bale's. And that brings up a point, Rick, that I'll mention here. The first time I saw a movie that had Christian Bale in it was the one about dragons, like a post-apocalyptic movie where the dragons had killed everything. Reign of Fire, I think is what it's called. And he was doing a British accent, and
I've not seen that.
It's a great movie, wonderful movie. Matthew McConaughey plays an American military guy that comes over and kind of saves the bacon of the pardon the pun, or the play on words rather, of the last holdout where Christian Bale and his crew are stationed. And after that, all I heard was American. So I thought, wow, Christian Bale is one of these American actors that can do a really good British accent. And then eventually later I saw him do an interview or something in his regular accent, and I was once again just blown away because he had convinced me that he was American.
There you go.
And Michael Beacom says, I'm not surprised that someone who can flawlessly imitate an American would be denied a knighthood. That's an interesting idea. And Steve Mitchum says, Gary Oldman should have been knighted for Immortal Beloved alone. A movie I haven't seen.
Nor me.
Yeah. And, of course, we have Rick's website, theunmutual.co.uk. Thank you, Canadian Spider-Man, for posting that.
What's your web address for people to get some merch, Cardinal Sin?
Oh, that's easy. That's gillstore.com.
Excellent. I advise everybody to go on there and get themselves there's t-shirts, mugs, all sorts.
And actually, now that you've brought it up, do please stay until the end of the show, which is coming up rather soon, because we'll be giving away one of these very nifty I Am Not a Number t-shirts on black with the URL on the back. And hopefully one of my mods will bring in a spinner wheel. I've issued the invitation in their Twitter group, so we'll be giving one of those away. And thank you, Rick, for mentioning that. I do appreciate that.
That's right. I think it's important that people know how they can get stuff to spread the word. I think it's a word that needs spreading.
I agree, of course. And it's, everything on my store is priced at literally cents over the profit margin, because it's a thank you for people being a walking billboard for my channel. I don't really make any money off of it to speak of. Going back to the comments, I want to make sure we have...
While you're just finding them, one thing I wanted to follow up on something earlier you said about this episode and the one before it, and how we've got a bit of a run of what people might say are kind of dead episodes. They're fillers, aren't they? When you watch the whole series, so when we get to episode 17, if we've watched that, you might look back and be a little bit thankful for this little lull, if you call it.
Yes.
Because the last two episodes are so heavy. This is almost a nice little breather before we get into the last two, in a way.
And again, when I get a chance to watch The Girl Who Was Deaf a second time, knowing what's going on, I'll probably love it. I
think if you don't take it seriously and if you divorce it from the rest of the series, then you'll enjoy it more. I think if you try and fit this in with the rest of it, then you're only going, and rightly so, you're only going to become frustrated. And that's exactly what's happened. And you're not wrong to have been. But I think if you divorce this from the rest of the series and just enjoy it for the spy genre homage that it is, as a few other people have said, then it's a bit more enjoyable that way. And you can start to pick out that's obviously Bond, and that's obviously
as a spoof. Yeah. Let's see. Tom Bernholt says, I actually preferred Dr. Pulaski to Dr. Crusher, which is interesting. Ivan Ivanovich said, I preferred Dr. Crusher, but I hated the season 1 dynamic where she's frequently scolding the captain on behalf of her messianic son. And let's see. Yes, Tessa says Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Did I say it wrong? Or is she just supporting my comment? Did I say Rosenstern and Gilden? No, I didn't. No. And Darius also has theunmutual.co.uk up here.
Lovely. Thank you for the further plug.
Of course. Ivan Ivanovich says, as surreal as the series is, I've never been bothered by the inconsistencies between episodes about how the village is constituted or functions.
Yeah, nor me. I mean, I was only 10 when I first watched The Prisoner, so it's difficult to kind of separate yourself from when you first watched it. But I remember watching it, not being bothered about the inconsistencies. I'm not sure I am now, particularly. We can all try and build a fictional link between everything, but this series doesn't necessarily need that because the allegory within it is the same.
Yeah. And Darius Munchausen has put up the channel URL for CamCam's crash courses. So best of luck, CamCam, with that. And Darius Munchausen says, I was your first subscriber. So everyone please subscribe to CamCam's crash courses. And CamCam says, thanks, Cardinal. Appreciate the shout out. You're too kind. Ivan Ivanovich mentions to Tracy's question about George Washington, he wouldn't speak with a modern British accent. The neutral American accent is much closer to how English was spoken in Washington's day. And Steve Mitchum says, my ancestor was a colonel in the British Army, 1730s, and his grandson was a lieutenant in the Colonial Army. And Ivan Ivanovich mentions, and Rick, this might be something you can speak to, the posh accent is a modern invention which takes in quite a bit of German pronunciations.
Yeah, I think certainly we do. Us English accent does borrow quite a bit from the Germanic. They're kind of both quite stern. I mean, Germans are kind of harsher sounding language, but there is little bits borrowed. Certainly, we've got more in common with it than a French accent, for example.
Well, English is a Germanic language, after all.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't know posh if it bit me, but coming from East
I
London,
think, doesn't posh stand for something? POSH?
Not that I know of. I'm going to be learning something new if it does.
I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Posh.
Let's see. What is POSH an acronym for? Port out, starboard home. Everybody knows that POSH stands for port out, starboard home. Somehow I don't believe that. Oh, here it says, does POSH really come from ocean travel? Dear Merriam-Webster, I was looking up the etymology of POSH, and you say its origin is unknown, but you're wrong. Everybody knows POSH stands for port out, starboard home. Interesting. I'm not sure I quite believe that either, but I do remember it was supposed to stand for something. Let's see here. Michael Beacom says, regarding accents, the 1962 film Mysterious Island, the main actor playing a North Army captain and the actor playing a Southern balloonist did flawless Northern/Southern U.S. accents, but they're both British.
I've been looking stuff up about POSH as well while you've been talking there. And according to Oxford Dictionary, which is obviously the pinnacle of
it's
the
source, the OED, yeah.
It says there is no evidence to support the folk etymology that POSH is formed from the initials of port out, starboard home. It's
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's the word from earlier 20th century, perhaps from the slang denoting either a dandy or coin of small value.
Ivan Ivanovich says, I saw Angela Lansbury in Sweeney Todd on Broadway. And we have lots of other comments I'd love to get to, but we need to wrap up. So I'm curious if Darius or Canadian Spider-Man can bring in the spinner wheel so we can give away a t-shirt. And while I'm waiting for the response,
I've really enjoyed this week. I'm sorry that Tracy and I couldn't hear. Well, Tracy couldn't hear me when I was speaking, but I tell you what I love about The Prisoner, and this has been a great example of it this week, is that you can have two people who are completely polar opposite on their view of an episode, but can have a great discussion about it. And that's what The Prisoner's all about, isn't it? About interpreting it in your own way.
Just like Tracy said, yeah,
exactly. And I think it's great earlier on that we were really disagreeing with each other, and I think that's fantastic, and that's what Patrick wanted. Patrick said, I wanted people to come up shouting at me with their fist in my face, not hitting him, but because I wanted he said he wanted controversy and he wanted discussion. He wanted people at home to discuss what they were watching, because so much TV you don't get that. It's just chewing gum for the eyes, isn't it, as the saying goes. So thank you, Cardinal, for having me on and for allowing me to disagree with you on a weekly basis. It's always great fun.
Right back at you, Rick.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your coming on, and you're so knowledgeable about all of these things. I really
there's no right
have
or wrong when it comes to a lot of things. There's no right or wrong. Yes, there's factual stuff I can tell you, but you're not any more right or wrong than I am when it comes to reviewing an episode.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I was surprised. I don't know why, but I was surprised to find your name in the. I'm going to turn off my light here because the monitor will illuminate it well enough. The Prisoner 50th Anniversary Blu-ray set has some thanks at the end, and I think your name is third.
Well, it was. I mean, we met in inverted commas. I first became involved with the show when you found out that I'd worked on the set, on the Blu-ray set, and that was what got me on the show, so to speak. So yes, I'm glad that that's very nice of them to thank me for my involvement in putting that together.
Well, what got you on the show really was the fact that I needed a co-host who knew what he was talking about. And you really do. And I very much appreciate your help and your knowledge and your input.
I can never get bored of talking about The Prisoner, and especially with someone who enjoys it like you do and is passionate about it like you are. And also, I think why I like it, I've been on other podcasts, but I like this one because, and you apologize for it and you shouldn't. I like the fact that we can segue into other conversations about other shows and find crossovers. And I really enjoy that. I really enjoy comparing The Prisoner to other shows and finding elements in different shows which might be thought of as prisoner-esque, and finding elements of other shows in The Prisoner, whether they're intended or not. And I enjoy that side of things.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I do too. And I guess that means we'll just do it again next year.
Why not?
Cam's Crash Courses says, check out Cardinal Sin's merch. It's priced for fans. I've got a really nice coffee mug and have my eye on a I Am Not a Number t-shirt.
Well, he might win one.
Might. If we can get a mod to help us spin the wheel, then we will. And Michael Beacom says, your knowledge is so great, Rick. Thank you so much. But your American accent needs a lot of work.
Well, I think that's very harsh. I think I can carry along with the rest of you. It depends what kind of region of the U.S. I want to be from, but I'm not sure I'm the right man for the job. I think Michael Beacom has got it right on the money again.
It's not bad. Rick, try and work the word hamburger into a sentence with an American accent.
Oh, I want to buy a hamburger.
Oh, that was great. That was really good. Hamburger is a word I find that a lot of Commonwealth people have difficulty with. And ladies and gentlemen, please, a big round of applause for Canadian Spider-Man.
Hey.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
And the crowd goes wild.
Yeah, good to see you.
So I guess Canadian Spider-Man, we need a link so that people in the chat can sign up to win the shirt, right?
That would be great, but no, we're not going to do that.
Okay, are you just going to manually do it?
That is correct. The link isn't working. Not going to do it that way.
Okay.
So if everyone just wants to put a 1 in the chat, that would be the easiest way. If you're here and conscious and want to enter the contest, please enter a 1 in the chat, and I can easily enter the names manually.
Sounds good. So just put a 1 in the chat if you'd like to be in the running for an I Am Not a Number shirt in your size. And please remember to send me your email address via email, which you can find on the About page on my channel. And we're getting some 1s, but we have 8 people in the chat, so everybody is eligible as long as they're in the chat, including mods. So Darius, put a 1 in if you'd like. Canadian Spider-Man, put a 1 in if you'd like. I was very happy to get your photo of you wearing your Midnight to Midnight shirt.
Oh, I love that shirt. Yeah,
that was really cool.
That was good.
As a matter of fact, I might just go hunt that down.
Yeah, that was it. It's a good quality shirt. I'm quite happy with it.
Where is it, though? Let me try this, and we'll wait for everybody to get their
while you're waiting
in.
While you're waiting for the 1s card, and I'm afraid a bit like Tracy, it's now time for me to depart. So I will let you do the competition.
Yeah, we're right at 2 hours, so we'll go ahead and let you go. Thank you so much again, Rick. And
thank you for letting me on. It is a genuine pleasure. I really always enjoy your company, and I shall be on next week.
All right. Well, we'll see you then.
Great. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you.
Take care, mate. And thank you, everybody who contributes to the chat. It's always all of you, so kind. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Rick.
And back at you. Thank you.
Be seeing you.
Be seeing you. And Murdog has put a 1 in. And I am still searching for this photo. Let me see.
Yeah, that'd be great, Cardinal Sin, if you could do that.
Yeah. Cardinal and Canadian are so close, it's giving me trouble.
I do like the color, too. It's a nice royal blue color. It's beautiful.
Here's Cam with the Midnight to Midnight mug. I can share that.
I haven't seen Phantom Boomer here today. Have you seen him around?
That's a good point. So I will share my screen, and here is Cam with his Midnight to Midnight mug, and we will be having another Midnight to Midnight either this week or next week. My schedule is totally slammed. Not only am I doing 5 shows this week and next week, but I'm moving across town.
Right. Fantastic.
And as a chronic pain patient, I have to take small loads, sort of one at a time, but it's working out, so should be okay.
Yeah, no, good. Glad.
And let's see who we have, how many we have here. And thanks, Orville Nation, who says, looking good, Gil. Thank you. Appreciate that. So we've got Ivan Ivanovich with a 1, Cam with a 1, Tessa with a 1, Darius with a 1, Michael Beacom with a 1, Murdog with a 1, and I noticed that you're not in there. I guess you put yourself on, huh?
Yes, I did. However, just to be fair, yeah, and I didn't see Michael Beacom put a 1 in there. I know he was here earlier, but without the 1, I really can't say.
No, it's right there. He put a 1 in the chat.
Oh, he did. Oh, he did. I see it. Okay.
And there's yours.
Then we have everyone. I have 7 names. I have all the names you mentioned. And I'll just share my screen.
Yeah.
And any audio setting here, I've got it turned.
I think it does click. Yeah.
It should. All right, good. I will share it right now. Share screen. Okay.
And as soon as I see it, I will put it up.
Lovely.
There we go. Looks like that might be the wrong screen.
That is the right screen, sir.
There we go. All right. Let's give it a spin.
Okay. I'm going to turn up the volume and we'll give it a spin.
Yay! Darius Munchausen.
Yes, well done. Congratulations, Darius.
Very good. Okay, so Darius, go ahead and get in touch with me, and we will get a t-shirt out to you. Thanks everybody for being here. Next week we will be reviewing Once Upon a Time, so please follow along. It's free to watch on Amazon Prime and on YouTube with ads. but it is the restored version. It sounds great, looks great. And I really want to thank Canadian Spider-Man for helping us with the giveaway. And yes, congratulations, Darius. And I will go ahead and wrap this episode up by saying, be seeing you. And it's Cardinal Sin out.